Well, happy Friday, everyone. Josh with Severe Weather. Appreciate you joining me here. And the final day of February, final day of meteorological winter. We are bringing on meteorological spring, which for the United States is our typically craziest season and the one with the most severe weather. And unfortunately, next week, things are going to get active here in the South Central United States. I'm going to share that in my screen here and talk more about what is to be expected, the timeline of this potential outbreak of severe weather and tornadoes, and then what's to come beyond that. So thank you so much for joining me here this afternoon, changing up the look a little bit here, but certainly going to make it as professional as possible here after about a 2.5 years here of messing around with the internet, starting to finally figure out what's going on. So let's look at temperatures first. And wow, look how mild it is across much of the country, with one exception, and that is the border with Canada here in Minnesota, North Dakota, and New England. You can see very easily on the map, there is a boundary here over the Dakotas and Minnesota. North of the front, it's still feeling very much like the middle of winter, although not as bad as it was here a few weeks ago. South of the boundary, though, a taste of spring and pollen. And we are enjoying 60s and 70s for much of the country here once we get to the south of St. Louis and Interstate 70. So enjoy it while you can, because that will be changing. As we look at the satellite image, we can see a lot of the country is enjoying sunshine with the exception of the Great Lakes. And if you're in this area, you're not really used to working on your tan anyway until we get into May and June. It's just not, it doesn't happen, I'm sorry to say, but we are used to that. But the entire Southeast, quiet right now, plenty of sunshine, a beautiful day for golf. The West Coast, not looking terrible. We do have a storm system, though, that is beginning to churn off of the coast of Southern California, and that is going to get picked up by the southern subtropical jet and move across the country here later this weekend into next week. We're going to talk about that here, of course. Really not a lot of winter weather going on today outside of the upper part of Michigan and upper New England and upstate New York, where we do have some advisories for snow accumulating. Canada is where the snow is falling, but we are going to see a little bit of snow across the Sierra Nevada range of California. Not a big deal as far as flooding goes for the time being, but we do have a flood watch in the Omaha area and in points to the north and west, and we do still have some rivers in flood stage, mainly the lower portion of the Ohio River and the Mississippi River Valley and the Pearl River and the Sabine River as well. So the next couple of days, fairly quiet. We do have a Clipper type low crossing Lake Superior this afternoon. That will move into the Georgian Bay and Lake Huron tonight, and then cross southern Ontario and track towards the St. Lawrence Valley here this weekend. Near it, we're going to see some snow accumulating. Not a major deal here in the United States side of things, but on the Canadian side, it is certainly going to come down pretty hard. And then this system moves out in time for Sunday, and we do have fairly quiet weather until our next system moves out of the west. And I do want to show you the NAM model for the western United States. I will have a new NAM coming in shortly after this video. I don't think a lot is going to change, but you can see that things are going to get more active here as we head into Saturday night and Sunday on the West Coast. Take a look at this. Not a powerful storm, but one that is going to bring a lot of moisture inland here. That's when the snow is going to be a problem across the Sierra Nevada for Sunday. We are going to see rain in the coastal plain as well. Fortunately, no flooding expected from this system. It is on the move, but things are likely going to change here. Now, I talked a little bit about the Madden-Julian oscillation in previous videos if you have joined me before. This is tough to understand, so I'm going to walk you through it here. But as we transition into spring, what you're going to notice is that we are going to see some more cold coming here in the month of March. The coldest phases of the MJO for North America in March are typically phases 2 and 3. We have had some cold in phase 8, but things have gone more into the center of this graphic, meaning we're in a null phase. What that means is that the extreme cold is on pause for the time being. But as we head into March, past the 4th and 5th, we do head into some colder phases. What this means is that there's going to be a lot of volatility in the weather here, with very mild temperatures in the south and shots of cold that come down in the northern United States that eventually do find their way into the south. Nothing unusual for this time of the year, but certainly going to send some shockwaves for those of you that have been seeing the warm weather now and are going to head back to colder weather for early next week. Now, I do want to talk about severe weather. You can see our supercell parameters are starting to climb over the next few weeks. This is a look at next week here through the 6th of March. We're going to get active in the southern plains and eventually the southeast. But unfortunately, things actually get more active as we head towards the middle of the month of March. So after next week's storm, the pattern quiets down temporarily, but then gets more active. And then as we head into that third and maybe fourth week of March, you could see things are definitely going to get a lot more active. We're going to see more rain. We're going to see more severe weather and probably tornado outbreaks. The western U.S. could be active as well. So things are definitely looking a lot more active than they were this time last year across the southern portion of the country, Dixie Alley in particular. If you look at the upper level pattern, now the brighter colors indicate ridges of high pressure aloft up at 500 millibars. The colder looking colors indicate that colder air aloft, which brings in the storminess. And you can see a piece of that cold comes down into the eastern U.S. this weekend. Then the West Coast has a series of storms that move in here. The first system is going to be fairly quiet, but the one after it here, Tuesday, which is Mardi Gras, by the way, down south here, and into Wednesday, this is going to be a potent storm system, bringing a lot of moisture up from the Gulf. It is also going to bring an increase in wind flow aloft, which will mean we have favorable conditions for severe weather, wind and hail, and certainly some tornadoes as well. After this system moves up to the east, a shot of cold comes down here by next weekend. Then it turns milder again the following week. Then we turn colder again. So a lot of back and forth here through the middle of March. But one thing is for certain here, this is a volatile weather pattern. We have this strong area of high pressure that is going to be centered near Florida and over the southern Gulf of America / Mexico and Caribbean. We're going to have a big trough in the western United States. In between the two is where things are going to get very active here for the middle of the month of March. In particular, Arkansas, East Oklahoma, East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alabama. But of course, that could certainly shift. If we look at temperature anomalies, we can see one shot of chill comes down here later this weekend. That leaves very quickly, though, and it warms up by the middle of next week as our potent storm moves in. Right back to cold again, though, at the end of next week and especially next weekend. A lot of back and forth, as you can see here. So we are going to see pieces of the polar vortex come down, but we're not going to see a widespread attack of cold air like we did, in fact, see here just last week. As we look ahead at our analogs, you can see the threat for severe weather begins to pick up here later on Monday, but begins to really flourish on Tuesday across the deep south and into the southern plains. There's going to be a pretty decent threat for severe wind here, and I'm trying to get this loaded for you, but also a threat for hail across this area, maybe some big hail in Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. And then tornadoes become a threat as well later on Tuesday into Tuesday evening, in particular in the Delta region, the Ark-La-Miss area, maybe even all the way down to Baton Rouge and New Orleans here in the evening, right on the tail end of the Mardi Gras festivities here. As we head into the day on Wednesday, the threat for tornadoes does lower some as the system moves east, but there's an increasing threat for severe wind all the way up to the Carolinas and Virginia. This is going to have a lot of wind energy with it as it plows eastward. I'm going to show you in a little bit what we're expecting. The Storm Prediction Center has highlighted this pretty well. We are going to see this starting off on Tuesday here in the area in orange, in particular, Shreveport, Little Rock, Memphis, even all the way up into western Kentucky and the boot heel of Missouri, and as far east as Jackson, Mississippi, and Tupelo, and Columbus and Starkville at night. And that is the area favored for the stronger tornadoes, but the area in yellow is certainly at risk as well. St. Louis, Springfield, Dallas, Fort Worth, Waco, Lufkin, all the way down to Baton Rouge, Mandeville, Lafayette, and Lake Charles, and as far east as Tuscaloosa and Birmingham as well. And then a pretty big area as well that has some potential for severe weather. Now, the timing could be a little bit shifty here in our next few days of forecast, but the area certainly is highlighted well, in my opinion, and I think the severe weather threat is going to grow as we head on into Wednesday. We're probably going to have an enhanced risk, 3 out of 5 here for severe weather, and possibly a moderate risk, depending on how things come together. Trends have certainly been looking a little bit more daunting here as we get to Tuesday afternoon. Here's a European model showing our Clipper system moving through eastern Canada and off the map here by Sunday. Next system moves down into California and dives down into Colorado. Cold air follows it, so we're going to see heavy snow in the Rocky Mountains and even in the high plains of Colorado later on Tuesday into Tuesday evening. But at the same time, a lot of wind across West Texas and a lot of moisture climbing northward here from the Gulf up into Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. So strong low pressure system here. This is early in the afternoon on Tuesday, centered over the Red River Valley and then advancing quickly northeast and deepening. As this low deepens, what will happen is cold air will get wrapped into the backside of it, and strong winds are going to power this system as it moves east and northeastward here. So we're going to see a lot of wind here by the middle of next week. We're also going to see a fairly heavy amount of rain, and there is the threat for supercell type storms that can produce tornadoes. Now, the storm track here has been pretty consistent on the European model, basically cutting up through the Lake Michigan area up into Lake Huron. And a mild air comes all the way up into southern New England on Wednesday. So it's going to turn windy and wet as the system roars through the area. We're also going to see thunderstorms in the southeast and mid-Atlantic that could punch in some severe weather with them. Behind this storm, we're going to see colder air come down and maybe another system. The track of this, uncertain, but maybe some wintry weather all the way down into Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. I mentioned the Carolinas. In the mountains, I think it's certainly a possibility, but I would be more in favor of this perhaps producing winter weather on the way out as it moves out of New Jersey and southern New England. We're going to have to see, of course. But the good news is that this shot of cold, this piece of the polar vortex that does come down, is going to be pretty short-lived. And as we move into the week of the 10th here, we do start to trend to a warmer pattern once again. And unfortunately, that could mean more severe weather as well, depending on how this next system tracks. So kind of the bottom line here over the next couple of weeks, a lot of back and forth, a lot of wind, a lot of potential for severe weather, and certainly some whiplash cold with snow, especially in the Rockies and then cutting up into the upper Midwest as well. If we take a look at the European here, we can see the wind field has strengthened as we get to what should be the peak of this event later on Tuesday into Tuesday evening. We have winds at 700 millibars that are just cranking over 75, 80 miles per hour, and knots really makes it about 90 miles per hour. And this is the latest run of the European. If we go back a day, you can see that this system has gotten deeper, farther south, and more intense. This time yesterday, the model was showing some strong winds moving through Arkansas into southern Missouri and clipping the Delta region. Flash forward to this afternoon's run, and this is certainly looking more impressive. And this is in all levels here. We have significant winds down to 850 millibars. And if this holds true here Tuesday afternoon, evening, there's going to be a widespread wind damaging threat here crossing several states during the afternoon Tuesday into Tuesday night. If we flash forward here a little bit here, you can see that the wind field actually increases after dark. And so that puts the Delta region at major risk. Memphis could be in this, eastern parts of Arkansas and southern Missouri. As we move on into the evening hours, we still see the wind threat into Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And then as we move into the early portion of Wednesday, pretty classic spring storm setup here, but we have difluence aloft, which means the air spreads out. This could bring severe weather into the mid-Atlantic states as we head into Wednesday. You can see here another piece of energy rotates from this trough up into the southeast and the Carolinas. This is Wednesday morning. This is Wednesday afternoon. We see that lifting up into the mid-Atlantic area, into the Delaware Valley as well. And then finally, this system lifts out and weakens as it does so. So we're going to definitely have to be on our toes here. There's quite a bit of instability that starts to build on Tuesday morning. And take a look at Tuesday afternoon. This is the one thing we have to watch here, because if this number climbs, we are going to see a bigger threat for tornadoes. Certainly, there's going to be a lot of lightning from this system. And let me zoom in and actually show you the states that will be affected here. So this is Tuesday afternoon. Things are starting to get going west of I-35. And then in particular, northeast Texas, western Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma. We can even see lightning all the way up into Iowa out of this system. So it's pretty dynamic. But I think our main threat for severe weather is going to be down in here later on Tuesday, and then Tuesday night crossing Mississippi and Alabama, or Louisiana, and then moving into western Alabama later at night. As we move this eastward here, I'm going to show this to you as well. The threat tries to regenerate here as we get into Wednesday. The Florida Panhandle, southeastern Georgia, all the way up into the Piedmont and North Carolina. And we could even see lightning all the way up to places like Toledo and Dearborn, Michigan, Columbus, Ohio, and across East Tennessee as the second portion of the storm moves through. So kind of two waves as you see here. So we're going to be watching this pretty closely. On the backside, snow could be fairly heavy here. Take a look at what the European is putting out here near to the south of Denver, potentially up to 18 inches. To the west of Parker and Castle Rock, probably in the mountains, but still significant snow expected. And then the second piece of this comes from Kansas City up into upper Michigan, and there will be potential for 3 to 6 or even more inches of snow from this portion of the storm. Looking farther east, we see some snow across northern New England. Not a shock at this time of the year. But this next piece, as it comes through here, the cold wave comes in behind it. We could see several inches of snow piling up again in the lake effect belts, again around the northern Great Lakes, and even down into western North Carolina, maybe even North Georgia here by the time we roll around into Thursday. And then you can see the system behind it. We're going to have to track this one more closely. Still a lot of uncertainty on how it's going to play out. But this one could try to make a run at turning into a nor'easter on the way out, or it could just be a swing and a miss. So we're going to watch that pretty closely for you in the coming days. The tropics are busy in the Indian Ocean and the Southern Pacific. We are watching Alfred here again, trying to flirt with Queensland, Brisbane. You have to watch it, but it looks like right now, even though the storm has strengthened, it will weaken and pull away from land here. We do have another cyclone to watch that's falling apart. But unfortunately, when we move into the southwestern Indian Ocean, things have been pretty bad. This first system, Garance, crossed the island of Réunion. It's a French territory, making landfall near St. Denis here just about 12 hours or so ago. And another system has clipped the southern coast of Madagascar. So watch out, Kowalski, as this comes by just to your south. Fortunately, it will weaken as it moves into cooler waters here. But here's a loop from earlier of our storm, Garance, as it moved right into Réunion here. This is an island that is no stranger to tropical cyclones, but this is a rare direct hit straight from the north. Fortunately, wind shear is picked up. It's moving south, and it is moving out of the area. So that's all I really have to share with you all today. We're going to keep a close eye on what's going on here early to middle portion of next week. But as always, I thank you for your time today. I do want to leave you with a word of encouragement. I am a meteorologist. I'm a dad. I'm an employee. I'm a husband. But first and foremost, both. I am a Christian man, and my faith in God, my faith in what's been done through Jesus' sacrifice is what drives me to share with you and serve you and be a servant leader here. And I just want to encourage you with a quick word, a quick passage here from the book of Romans. Paul tells the church of Rome that God has everlasting love. Romans 8:31, New King James Version. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is it he who condemns? It is Christ who died and furthermore is also risen, who is even at the right hand of God, who also makes intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for your sake, we are killed all day long. We are counted as the sheep for the slaughter. Yet in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. I want you to realize that we are more than conquerors. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in the world that I'm not even going to get into. There's a lot of hate out there. There's a lot of government overreach. There's a lot of war going on. There's a lot of people who are suffering. However, we serve a mighty God, and he loves us so much that he has given us this opportunity to conquer everything and eternally to live with Jesus Christ. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a believer. But I think it's very important that as somebody who has seen this firsthand, who has seen the love through other people, that I share that love with you. If you saw a good movie, I think you would want to share what you saw with your friends. That's how I feel about the Christian belief system. It's that God really does have a wonderful plan through Jesus Christ, and that plan is for us to live eternally with Christ one day. If you don't believe that, I am not going to judge you on that. I still truly believe you're welcome here. You came here for a science presentation and a forecast. You probably didn't come here to get preached to, but I do want to encourage you because I do think that truly in the end, that's really what's going to matter. Not what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, but what happens when your time on earth is gone. So I appreciate you joining me here. I hope everybody's a great weekend. I'm going to try to get back on soon. I got family in town, which is a blessing. I got family to take care of. And I'm going to do my very best to make sure you all are in the know with the weather. So I appreciate your time today. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.